So Ruben, tell me, what are the biggest challenges procurement leaders face with their supplier contracts?
Yeah, look, I think it's the sheer volume of contracts that organizations are trying to get their arms around to manage today. I think just visibility above and beyond what a traditional contract lifecycle management system does. I think over the last 20 years or so, organizations have been good about putting centralized repositories in place, and going through filing cabinets and trying to put digitized versions of contracts within a repository, but it only gets them so far. They're tracking key dates and maybe key stakeholders and setting review dates, but actually what's inside those contracts, it's keeping procurement professionals up at night, and to trying to get some kind of systemic way to see what's inside the contracts above and beyond just an end date, is a big challenge. I also think a big challenge is equipping sourcing managers and category managers with insights into what's a competitive deal. I think a lot of times we are negotiating with a blindfold on and understanding what insights are available to make sure that there's competitive deal structures on the table and our suppliers are giving us favorable deals is a real challenge.
So they want, in fact, they know they need better performance out of their contracts. Are they ready when it's time to negotiate?
Yeah, so I mentioned this lack of visibility into what's competitive. I think it's particularly difficult when we talk about indirect spend categories, most specifically in the technology space, facilities, logistics, temp labor services, outsourcing agreements. It is really difficult to understand what's competitive and what's not competitive. What's a good rate? Where should my organization be in relation to my peers? So as far as being ready to negotiate when it's time, I think that procurement professionals often are not. I see best positioned procurement departments actually able to create what I'll call this three-legged stool, this holistic approach to approaching negotiations. The first being just supplier performance data, right? For incumbent suppliers that are in your ecosystem today, are they performing how they should? How do you get feedback from stakeholders? What terms and conditions should be adjusted to drive good behavior, or to improve performance? And I also, mentioned attribute tracking and discovery within contracts. I think creating an intelligence program around contract data is of the utmost importance. Building some kind of best-in-class ability for an organization to gain intelligence around contract attributes and understand the guidelines from a business and supplier perspective and what they should be operating within. And then the third, I mentioned supplier performance data. I mentioned contract performance data. The third is just market intelligence, right? Trends, understanding where contracts should be when compared to best in class, where my peers are in the industry, and just gaining insights into where the market should be from a competitive perspective.
So you just talked about best in class. What are really the keys to getting to best in class for contracts?
Knowledge. I think understanding suppliers are generally typically better positioned to negotiate than your typical indirect procurement department, and knowing that out of the gate, right? They understand going into the negotiation table the limited resources that centralized procurement departments have, the high turnover, the lack of competitive data, the lack of just understanding where performance could be improved through crafted terms and conditions, and understanding that going in and equipping yourself with as much knowledge as you can, whether that be market intelligence or contract data intelligence, and then just creating a runway. Oftentimes we back ourselves into a corner with this reactive approach to this contract's expiring, or I know I need to go to bid and do an RFP to refresh the life cycle of this vendor relationship. Give yourself a runway. The speed to signature on both net new deals and renewals, RFP cycles, and ensure you've got the right tools to generate knowledge for your team, and don't back yourself into a corner with the clock ticking.
Yeah, and it's not really just about optimizing the negotiation. There's also what happens after. Time and again, we hear procurement leaders admit they put a contract on a shelf and they forget about it until it's time to negotiate again. There has to be a better way, right, Ruben?
Yeah, so touch points, right? Think of the contract as a living, breathing thing that has a life cycle. Creating touch points along the contract life cycle is key to ensuring a healthy relationship and allows procurement to create value for the business above and beyond just that point in time negotiation. In the case of PRGX, right, we've got an approach reactive, proactive, and always active, and that strategy helps our clients achieve value across the life cycle of a given contract or a given supplier relationship. From a reactive perspective, right, it's important. Put an audit program in place, create this watchdog methodology, and ensure that what you negotiated is actually being reflected on the accounts payable side of the business. This proactive approach that we've created through contract optimization, we're generating intelligence into the contract ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, right, attribute identification within a contract to uncover areas of opportunity or sourcing strategies to tighten exposure in deals prior to things falling apart or prior to the fire alarm sounding. Whether that be a risk out strategy or a cost out strategy, identifying areas of opportunity in contracts existing within the ecosystem and deploying your procurement resources proactively to address it versus waiting for an audit or waiting for the business to start, sounding the alarms that something's gone awry is absolutely best in class. And I'll mention always active, right? A best-in-class approach to real-time monitoring larger, hairier, more complex supplier relationships on a prepayment basis to ensure compliance issues are reconciled before issues balloon over time.
Yeah, I think about what you talk about and how we're delivering to clients with PRGX contract management, our suite of services. How do we combine the expertise we have and the technology we have to transform what has been that very challenging experience for a lot of very smart procurement professionals?
And in all honesty, right, we see the market in a very fragmented state right now. The tech solutions have become abundant over the last 10 years or so, but they're limited in the insights that they can generate for procurement outside of traditional contract lifecycle management platforms. Most are really hyper-focused on the spend side. They're doing spend analytics as feeds from a ledger or an ERP system. And while that is a key component of holistic supplier management and a strategy that goes with that, and it's one that we offer as well, our tech solutions built from the ground up to focus on breaking down contracts and analyzing them through the procurement lens to identify opportunity, whether that be cost or risk out, and combining that contract intelligence with spend analytics creates a better picture of the whole ecosystem. Outside of tech, right, in the market, we also see offerings that are consulting services related, and they generate wonderful market intelligence. Typically, it's really myopic in nature. Usually one contract or one supplier, sometimes one category at a time, but it is very targeted, it is very expensive, and it is just a point in time, reactive consultancy services engagement. Our solution tries to combine both of those, right? We've got this incredible piece of technology that is AI enabled that allows us to scan contracts at scale, thousands at a time, and pinpoint areas of opportunity, and then match that up with our over 70 SMEs that sit within the contract management business that understand what has worked and what has not worked for our clients over the past many years to try to develop an actual strategy and deliver that strategy to our clients that marries the tech plus the SME.